Palantir just reported its strongest quarter in history, and the stock market sold off. That gap between an accelerating business and a falling share price, well, it's either the moment that the bears are finally being proven right, or the second chance that Palantir bulls have been so patiently been waiting for. Because the argument today is no longer about whether Palantir is growing. Of course it is. The real fight is over how long that growth can last, how much investors should pay for it, and whether the company today is becoming the operating system for institutions that simply can't afford failure. Well, in this video, you're going to learn what's driving Palantir's latest acceleration, why the stock still sold off after reporting amazing results, and how the next earnings report could actually determine whether Palantir is setting itself up for another run or a much deeper reset. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel, hello, my name is Rick Orford. I'm a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, been trading since 1999, and no, I'm not a financial advisor. That's a good thing, because I'm right here with you, breaking down the numbers so retail investors like us can make smarter, more confident decisions with our money. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. And you all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by almost 6 times. Go to fool.com/Ricko to get your 10 stock picks right now. So I recently asked whether Palantir was becoming the default operating system for institutions that can't afford failure. And since then, the market has handed me an answer that I really didn't expect. It arrived as a contradiction. Palantir reported the strongest quarter in its history. First quarter 2026 revenue came in at $1.63 billion, up 85% year over year. That's a remarkable acceleration for a company that's already operating at this scale. Adjusted operating income hit $984 million, representing a 60% margin, while adjusted free cash flow came in at $925 million. Then management raised its full year 2026 revenue guidance to around $7.6 billion. That would imply 71% growth, which is a full 10 percentage points above the company's previous outlook. U.S. commercial revenue guidance is now above $3.2 billion, calling for at least 120% growth in that segment alone. And the stock fell after earnings. Anyway, Palantir opened the year in the high 170s, and it dropped near $106 in June, only to rebound into the low 120s in early July. But even after that bounce, the stock remains close to its 52-week low. So the business accelerated while the stock got cut down. And when the fundamentals and the price move in opposite directions this violently, one of them is going to eventually be proven wrong. I mean, everyone can see the growth. The disagreement is over what multiple that growth deserves. And that's the disagreement, right? It's rarely been wider. Now, before I go any further, I do want to give a shout out to my community. It's one of the fastest growing investing communities here on YouTube. We talk about specific companies, what they're doing, and even options trading. Best part is it's completely free to join. Just scan the QR code on the screen or check for the link in the description and click it. I'll see you there. Now, going back, in my recent video, the bear case was mostly about valuation, as it has been for a while. And today it has names, numbers, and one of the widest bull versus bear spreads among the large caps. Now, on one end, Morgan Stanley's bull case scenario reaches $382 a share, while several major firms have targets above $200. On the other end, Jefferies still has a $70 target and an underperform rating. Their argument is that Palantir's valuation depends on what they're calling heroic durability. So the bears believe investors are pricing in acceleration almost forever after 11 straight quarters of faster growth. And they believe that that assumption eventually has to break. And then there's Michael Burry, the guy of The Big Short, who's taken one of the most closely watched bearish positions on Palantir. And even after the decline, he reiterated his bearish view and continues to argue that Palantir's valuation and the business model leave the stock vulnerable. But notice what the bear case doesn't require. It doesn't require Palantir's business to collapse. Even at $70 a share, the stock would still be priced richer than the most profitable software companies today. The bears simply need investors to pay less for the same growth. Of course, the bull case has its own set of challenges. To truly earn a price near $382, Palantir is going to need to grow revenue from where it is today to somewhere around $40 billion. So both sides are really betting on the multiple, not the company. And that matters because the next part of the story isn't about a theoretical future. It's about the wins that Palantir is stacking right now. Now, since my last videos, Palantir has added 3 developments that strengthen the operating system thesis. The first is Nvidia. In March, Palantir and Nvidia announced the Sovereign AI operating system reference architecture. Then, in late June, Palantir launched an engine for deploying Nvidia's Nemotron open models in sovereign environments. That phrase, sovereign environments, it's worth remembering. It means a defense agency, means a power grid, or any other critical institution can now run advanced AI inside infrastructure that they control. It could mean on-premise, at the edge, or even through a sovereign cloud rather than depending entirely on an external public cloud. Palantir shares have moved higher as investors reacted to the broader sovereign AI push. So, if my last video argued that Palantir was becoming the operating system for major institutions, sovereign AI adds some fire to that argument. It also puts the world's most valuable chipmaker inside Palantir's sales pitch. The second development is the US Army. Palantir secured a foundational role in the common data layer for next-generation command and control. This is one of the Army's highest priority modernization programs. The Army selected Anduril to lead the common data baseline, while Palantir is providing an edge-to-cloud data mesh through Foundry as the program moves from prototyping towards scale delivery. By the way, a data mesh is just something that connects information across systems and locations, allowing decision makers to work from a shared operational picture. And programs like this can create multi-year revenue visibility, all while deepening the institutional entrenchment that I've discussed before. And the third development, I think, is a little philosophical, but still underrated. Palantir CEO Alex Karp has been publicly criticizing the per-token pricing model that's used by leading AI companies. This is a practice he mockingly calls token maxing. Palantir takes an entirely different approach. It emphasizes the value and operational outcomes customers achieve, while positioning AIP as an orchestration layer that can work with whichever AI model the customer prefers. The orchestration layer coordinates the models, data, workflows, and decisions that are needed to turn AI into something useful inside a real organization. And that framing allows Palantir to be a partner to model providers rather than be a direct competitor. And it also helps explain the strategic logic behind the company's work with Nvidia. Now, those wins make the bull case stronger, but they don't make the risks disappear. And some of the risks are actually becoming more important precisely because the company is now so big and the valuation is still so demanding. Let's start with dilution. Palantir reported $201.6 million in stock-based compensation in a single quarter. It is real, and it's a recurring cost that shareholders ultimately absorb. Then there's contract risks. The company's filings, they flag long sales cycles, and they say that contracts can be terminated for convenience. That means a major government customer can walk away without breaching their agreements. Competition is also another concern. Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet, they could dominate cloud infrastructure, while Microsoft is reportedly assembling a team of 6,000 AI engineers and specialists that are focused on enterprise AI adoption. Nobody yet, though, has replicated Palantir's ontology layer. This is the system that connects an organization's data to real-world objects, relationships, and decisions that matter inside the businesses. But hyperscalers, well, they can bundle their own products, they can offer discounts, and they can outspend almost anyone. Concentration, it also cuts both ways. Commercial growth is still heavily based in the United States, international expansion is moving more slowly, and government spending can be, well, lumpy to say the least. Palantir also benefits from close ties to the current administration, and that gives the company momentum today, but it creates political risk if Washington's priorities ever change. So the question isn't whether Palantir has risks. Every company does. The real question is whether those risks are already reflected in a stock that's fallen this far, this fast, or whether the valuation still assumes almost flawless execution. Well, in the future, I'm going to be watching three big things. The first here is adjusted free cash flow. Palantir produced $925 million in the first quarter. If the company can sustain performance anywhere near that level, the quality of earnings argument becomes that much stronger. The second is U.S. commercial revenue. Management's full-year guidance calls for at least 120% growth, and that segment carries the entire commercial expansion story. And the third is the acceleration streak. Palantir has now delivered 11 straight quarters of accelerating growth. That's the exact durability that Jefferies describes as heroic. The moment acceleration stops, that bear case, boom, gets its first real data point. And it's why the future earnings reports are going to matter much more than the headline revenue numbers. Investors already expect strength. The harder test is whether Palantir can keep raising the ceiling without giving the market a reason to lower the multiple. Now, if you like Palantir stock, maybe you want to buy it, but think today just the stock is too expensive, but say maybe you'd rather own it 15 or 20% below where it trades today. Well, if that's the case, check this video up here, because I talk about how you can sell a put option on an AI stock you want and get paid to wait for it to potentially come down to your price. And if it does come down to your price, you get to buy the shares at that lower price, and you keep the premium you were sold. So where does that leave the verdict? Well, the business has done nearly everything the bulls have ever asked, and the stock still fell. To me, that looks more like an opportunity than a broken thesis. The operational case from my last videos, they didn't weaken. It actually became stronger. NATO, the US Army, and the NHS have all supported the institutional operating system thesis. And now Nvidia, the world's most valuable chipmaker, is standing inside Palantir's sovereign AI strategy. So the market didn't reprice the company's execution, it repriced its own patience. And history shows what happens when Wall Street loses patience with a business that continues to execute. Right? Long-term investors, guess what? That's when they get sometimes their best opportunities. I mean, look at what happened with Amazon back in 2003. Now, sure, the comparison isn't perfect, and Palantir still has to earn every dollar of its valuation, but the pattern is really familiar. A powerful business keeps improving, while the market becomes less willing to pay for distant growth. Now, the bears, they're betting that the multiple contracts faster than the company can grow into it. And the bulls are betting that Palantir becomes one of the most entrenched AI companies in the Western world. So I know what side of the trade I want to be on, but now I want to turn it over to you. Do you think Palantir's stock price is finally proving the bears right? Or is the market handing long-term investors a second chance? And do you think Palantir keeps accelerating long enough to justify a premium multiple, or do their future reports point to where the streak is going to begin to break? And before I go, did I get any of this right? Did I forget something? Let me know all of that and more in the comments below. And while you're there, if you found the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help others find a video. It supports the channel and it makes sure that you don't miss out on my next deep dive. Well, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again here on YouTube or in my community. Bye for now.